My name is Ethan Ingram. I'm 22 years old. Don't clap. I paid for that degree. Not him. My father's voice cracked across the Millbrook State Auditorium the second I finished my valedictorian speech. 2,000 people froze mid-applause. I want you to picture it. A man in a navy blazer standing alone in a sea of seated families. Brass buttons catching the stage lights. Jaw tight. Finger pointed straight at his son, like I'd just embarrassed him at a backyard barbecue instead of a university commencement. I was still at the podium. Gold honor cord resting against my chest. The microphone humming softly with the sound of my own breathing. 2,000 witnesses. My pulse hit so hard, I could feel it in my teeth. She wouldn't have made it one semester without my money, he shouted. Everything he has is because of me. The air in that room changed. You could feel it shift. Programs stopped rustling. Cameras lowered. A baby cried somewhere in the upper rows. But here's what my father didn't know. I had worked 3 jobs for 4 years. I had sent him $800 every month. I had taped my sneakers together with duct tape to survive catering shifts. And the dean sitting 6 feet behind me already had a file on her desk containing 8 scholarship disbursement records with my father's signature on checks he was never supposed to touch. He thought he was taking credit. He was confessing. I didn't cry. I didn't yell back. I looked at him, at the man who had spent 4 years telling everyone he was financing my future, and realized that for the first time in my life, the numbers were about to speak louder than he ever could. And numbers don't lie. Not even for fathers. Let me take you back 6 years. Before I take you back to where this really started, I need to pause for just a second. If this story connects with you, if you've ever felt controlled, rewritten, or forced to stay quiet, to keep the peace, hit like and subscribe. Not out of sympathy, out of recognition. And drop a comment telling me where you're listening from and what time it is there. I read every single one. Now, let's rewind. 6 years. Back to the last week, I still had my mother. 6 years before that auditorium. Before the shouting. Before the fraud investigation. Before I understood what my father was capable of, the last week I still had my mother. Her name was Margaret Ingram. She taught high school biology in Dayton, Ohio. The kind of teacher who could make mitosis sound like a miracle instead of a diagram. She didn't just teach science. She made you feel like understanding something was an act of courage. Every night after dinner, we sat at the kitchen table, the one with the uneven leg she kept meaning to fix, and went through my homework together. The refrigerator was layered with my report cards, science fair ribbons, honor roll certificates. She taped up everyone herself. Our house wasn't impressive. 3 bedrooms, faded siding, a backyard that always needed mowing. But when she was there, it felt solid, safe. My father, Gerald Ingram, occupied space differently. Insurance adjuster, steady salary, steadier ego. He believed in hierarchy. Provider on top, gratitude beneath it. Parent-teacher conferences were a waste of time. Science competitions were nice, but don't get soft. He controlled every dollar that entered the house. My mother had a small checking account of her own. She called it her independence fund. She never explained it. She didn't have to. The fall of my junior year, she was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. She had never smoked. Life doesn't grade on fairness. 11 weeks later, and she was in a hospital bed watching me solve calculus problems beside her. She loved watching me work. Said it made her feel like she'd done something right. One evening, while machines hummed quietly behind her, she squeezed my hand and said something I didn't understand until years later. "You'll go to college. I've already taken care of it." I thought she meant emotionally. I thought she was giving me permission to leave. She had an old Dell laptop, scratched casing, cracked hinge. It whined when it powered on. After the funeral, I packed it into a box with her scarves and recipe cards and couldn't bring myself to open it. Turning it on felt like hearing her voice again. She died on a Tuesday. The house changed by Friday. The kitchen stopped smelling like broth. The refrigerator lost half its color. The chair she used to sit in disappeared within a week. And my father moved fast. Too fast. I didn't notice it then. Grief makes you slow. Grief narrows your world until survival is the only thing that fits inside it. But that sentence, "I've already taken care of it," wasn't comfort. It was a promise. I just hadn't realized yet what she had taken care of, or who would try to take it from me. The week after the funeral, my father reorganized the house the way he reorganized insurance claims. Efficient. Final. No discussion. He closed my mother's personal checking account, her independence fund. I watched him sit at the dining table with a stack of papers and a black pen, signing where signatures were required, sliding everything into a leather folder, like he was sealing a case. "That account's unnecessary now," he said without looking up. "I'll handle the finances." I was 16. I nodded. All mail started going through him. He picked it up every afternoon at 4:15 like clockwork. Bills, bank statements, anything with my name on it. "I don't want you worrying about paperwork," he said. "Focus on school." It sounded protective. It wasn't. He gathered my mother's documents for school contracts, medical bills, folders, tax records, and boxed them up. The box went into his office closet. The dining table lost a chair. He sat at the head now. I cleared the plates. A young man should know how to run a house. He told me one night while I scrubbed a skillet, "Your mother did her part. Now it's your turn." I started cooking dinner every evening, cleaning bathrooms on Saturdays, ironing his shirts on Sundays. I told myself it was grief. I told myself he didn't know how to exist without her. But grief has a softness to it. What he was doing felt structured, intentional. Senior year arrived quietly. I applied to Millbrook State University 4 hours from home. I wrote my essays at the same kitchen table where my mother had once corrected my lab reports. I submitted everything from my school email account so he wouldn't see it. When the acceptance email came, I printed it out and placed it in front of him at dinner like an offering. He read it slowly, chewed, swallowed. "All right," he said. "I'll allow it." Allow it. Like college was a privilege he could grant or revoke. Then he pulled out a legal pad. He loved legal pads. Yellow, narrow-ruled, clean margins. He wrote down numbers. Tuition, housing, books, food. He listed, "I'll cover the major expenses, but you'll contribute." How much, I asked. $800 a month. My stomach tightened. "From what you'll get a job. Real men don't live for free. I'm not raising someone who thinks the world owes him something." $800 might as well have been $8,000. But he leaned back in his chair. "Studying me? I'm investing in you," he said. "You'll invest back." I nodded. What I didn't know, what I wouldn't know for 3 more years, was that there was no investment. There was no tuition bill in Gerald Ingram's name. There was no financial burden he was carrying. There was a full-ride scholarship already approved, and letters addressed to me had already started arriving in our mailbox. I never saw a single one. Every afternoon at 4:15, he collected them. Every evening at dinner, he said nothing, and I believed him, because when your entire world collapses into one person, you don't question the terms of survival. You adapt to them. I left for Millbrook that fall believing I owed my father $800 a month, believing he was sacrificing for me, believing the system made sense. It didn't. The numbers just hadn't surfaced yet. I arrived at Millbrook State with 2 suitcases, a duffel bag, and the belief that I owed my father $800 a month. What I didn't know was that my tuition had already been covered in full. But I walked onto campus like a debtor. Before classes even started, I had 3 jobs lined up. Mornings. I worked as a chemistry tutor at the campus learning center, $15 an hour explaining stoichiometry to freshmen who looked as overwhelmed as I felt. Afternoons between lectures, I sat behind the circulation desk at the university library. Federal work study, minimum wage, quiet enough to study if I was lucky. Weekends, I worked catering shifts for a company called Silvercrest Events. White shirt, black slacks, 12-hour shifts carrying trays of champagne flutes for people whose watches cost more than my semester's textbook budget. 18 credit hours. 3 jobs. 4 to 5 hours of sleep on a good night. By October, the soles of my sneakers were separating from the fabric. I taped them with duct tape and kept going. There wasn't room for pride in survival. At the end of first semester, my GPA was a 3. Joshitsi. By spring, it climbed to 4. 1 ling. Dean's List both terms. On the 1st of every month, I transferred $800 to my father's account. No delay. No questions. Our Sunday calls followed the same script. "Did you send it?" "Yes." "Good." Click. Sometimes he added, "Remember, I'm covering the rest." The rest? The word hung in my head like something solid, something real. I called once to tell him I'd made the Dean's List again. "It's just a list," he said. "Call me when you've done something that pays." I stared at the dorm room wall for a long time after that. My roommate, Marcus Patel, mechanical engineering major, built like a linebacker, but somehow the gentlest guy I'd ever met looked up from his laptop. "You good?" he asked. "Yeah," I said. I wasn't, but I didn't yet understand how far off the math was. Freshman year turned me into 3 different people: student, worker, provider. I ate ramen 3 nights a week to stay under budget. I skipped meals when catering tips came up short. I calculated every purchase twice before swiping my debit card. Meanwhile, my father's life seemed comfortable. That summer, I went home for 2 weeks between shifts. There was a new patio set in the backyard. Wrought iron, glass top table, cushions still stiff from the store. "Bonus," he said when I asked about it. "You think insurance doesn't pay." There was also a new television mounted in what used to be my bedroom. "You've got a dorm," he said. Didn't see the point keeping this empty. My books were stacked in the garage. My mother's box, the one with the Dell laptop, sat on top of them, dust collecting along the edges. I slept on the couch that week. Back on campus. Sophomore year intensified everything. My GPA stayed at 4. Lean. Professor Diana Colton nominated me for an undergraduate research position in the molecular biology lab, a spot usually reserved for upperclassmen. I got it. I called my father, expecting the usual dismissal. "Good," he said. One word. It hit me harder than it should have. Approval from him felt like oxygen, even diluted. But something else had happened that week. The Penn Scholars Foundation had deposited $5,500, the semester disbursement, into a joint account opened when I was 17, an account with my name on it. And his signature. I didn't know that yet. What I did know was this. Every month, I sent $800. Every semester, I believed he paid the rest. Every family barbecue, he told relatives how expensive I was. Nobody handed me anything. I overheard him say once, beer in hand, "I'm footing the bill for that boy's future." They clapped him on the back, called him a good father. I stood beside the grill, holding a plate of burgers, and felt something quiet shift inside me. Not suspicion yet, just a small crack. Because I worked 3 jobs. He had a new truck. And somehow, the numbers didn't look like sacrifice. They looked like surplus. I just hadn't opened the right ledger yet. If there's one thing my father understood instinctively, it was audience. He didn't just want control. He wanted witnesses. That summer after sophomore year, he hosted a 4th of July barbecue in the backyard, the same backyard now furnished with the wrought iron patio set bought during my expensive college years. 15 guests, neighbors, 2 co-workers, a couple of poker buddies. He stood by the grill with a beer in one hand and a spatula in the other. Holding court. "Nobody handed my son anything," he said loudly. "He's at Millbrook because I'm writing checks." A few men nodded in approval. "That's what a father does," he continued. "You sacrifice. You carry the load." I was standing 10 feet away, refilling a bowl of chips. 3 jobs, 4-hour nights, $800 transferred on the 1st of every month. I almost laughed, but I didn't, because at that point, I still believed he was covering the rest. Thanksgiving that year was worse. He invited nearly 20 people, distant cousins, neighbors from 3 houses down, his friend Frank Murdoch and Frank's wife. I'd driven home early that morning and started cooking at 5 a.m. Turkey, stuffing, mashed potatoes, 2 pies from scratch. My hands smelled like sage and dish soap. By sheshed pp fam. The house was full. My father sat at the head of the table. Crisp button-down shirt. Posture straight. Voice calibrated for performance. Before anyone touched their food, he raised his glass. "This year," he announced, "I'm spending over 30 grand to keep Ethan at Millbrook." A murmur of admiration rippled across the table. "Biochemistry," he added. "He says he wants to be a scientist." A few chuckles. I tried to explain my research when an aunt asked enzyme inhibition studies. Lab protocols. The molecular biology position I'd earned. I got 2 sentences in. "My money," he interrupted, slicing turkey with deliberate precision. His little experiment. Laughter. Some genuine, some uncomfortable. I felt heat crawl up the back of my neck. Little experiment. I had spent hundreds of hours in that lab. I had carried trays at weddings until 1 a.m. to afford textbooks. I had taped my shoes together to survive. Little experiment. Under the table. My hands were fists against my thighs. Frank Murdoch caught my eye from across the table. Just for a second. There was something there. Not accusation. Not support. Just doubt. After dinner, while I washed dishes alone in the kitchen, my great-aunt Helen appeared beside me with a dish towel. She dried plates quietly for a moment before speaking. "Your mother worked very hard to make sure you'd be taken care of," she said softly. I glanced at her. "I know." "No," she replied, eyes steady. "You don't." Before I could ask what she meant, my father called from the living room. "Ethan, come thank everyone for coming." I dried my hands and stepped back into the performance. That was the pattern. Public generosity, private obligation. Sunday calls grew sharper that year. "Did you send it?" "Yes." "Don't forget who's keeping you there." He'd pivot from money to guilt with mechanical precision. "Your mother's gone. I'm the only one left." Then control. "You owe me?" Every week. Same rhythm. Same words. Marcus started noticing. He'd sit at his desk pretending not to listen, while I answered in short responses, staring at the cinderblock dorm wall. After I hung up, I'd walk into the bathroom and turn on the shower even if I wasn't getting in. He never mentioned it, but he knew. By the end of sophomore year, something had changed. Not externally. My GPA was still 4. Lynn, I still worked 3 jobs. I still sent the money. But internally, the applause at Thanksgiving didn't land the way it used to. Because performance only works if the math supports it, and the math was starting to look wrong. I just didn't have proof yet. Junior year started with a broken hinge. When my father converted my old bedroom into a den, he'd boxed up everything that didn't fit his new layout. My books, my trophies, my mother's scarves, and her old Dell laptop. During one of my short visits home, I grabbed it without thinking and shoved it into my duffel bag. It sat untouched in my dorm closet for nearly 2 years. I couldn't open it. Turning it on felt like reopening a wound I had barely learned to live around. But that October, my own laptop crashed during midterms. I couldn't afford a replacement, so I carried the Dell to campus IT. 3 days later, the tech called. Hard drives intact. Everything's there. I waited until Marcus left for class before opening it. The fan whirred loudly. The screen flickered once. Then her desktop appeared. Wallpaper, a photo of us at the county fair. I was 15. Cotton candy stuck to my chin. She was thinner than I remembered. I opened her email. Newsletters. School correspondence. A recipe exchange with Aunt Helen. Then I clicked on the drafts folder. There it was. An unsent email dated March 14th, 3 months before she died. Subject: Piton Scholars Foundation application. Ethan M. Ingram attached a completed scholarship application. Full ride merit award. Sent Yuan 000 per year. I stopped breathing. Below that draft, in her sent folder, was the confirmation email. Dear Mrs. Ingram, we have received your application on behalf of Ethan M. Ingram. Notification will be issued by August 1st. My hands started shaking. She wasn't speaking metaphorically. I've already taken care of it. She meant paperwork. She meant funding. She meant my future. The next morning, I walked into the financial aid office at 803 a.m. and asked to see my scholarship history. A counselor named Linda pulled up my file. Yes, she said after a moment. Piton Scholars Award. Full ride merit scholarship. Currently in its 3rd year of disbursement. My ears rang. Disbursement to where I asked. She turned her screen slightly. Student account in your name. Authorized cosigner listed. She read it aloud. Gerald R. Ingram. The room tilted. How much, I asked. She clicked. 6 semesters so far. Total disbursed $124. 000, including stipends. $124,000. My throat went dry. Has any of that been applied to tuition? Yes. Tuition is automatically covered. The stipend portion for housing and living expenses is deposited into the joint account listed. Joint account. The one my father opened when I was 17. The one he told me was for emergencies. I walked out of that office and sat on a bench outside the administration building for 45 minutes. 3 jobs. $800 a month. Skipped meals. Taped shoes. Sunday guilt. Public speeches about sacrifice. And a full ride scholarship paying everything. My mother fought for it from a hospital bed. My father cashed it. That Sunday, when my phone rang at its usual time, I answered. Send it early this month, he said. Need new tires. My voice cracked just slightly. Okay. He didn't notice. He never listened closely enough to hear fractures. I hung up, turned on the shower, and for the first time in 6 years, I didn't cry because I was tired. I cried because I was furious. The debt had never existed. The sacrifice had never been his. And the man I'd been trying to make proud had been stealing from me the entire time. I sent him the $800 that month. It was the last payment he would ever receive from me. But I didn't confront him. Not yet. A confrontation without documentation is just noise. And Gerald Ingram had spent a lifetime turning noise into something I'd regret. I needed authority. I needed evidence. I needed someone who wasn't me to say the word theft. I went to Professor Diana Colton first. Her office smelled like black coffee and old books. The periodic table hung framed behind her desk. I sat across from her, hands flat on my knees, and told her everything. The Dell laptop, the scholarship confirmation, the financial aid report, the $124,000, the 3 jobs, the $800 a month. She didn't interrupt. When I finished, she took off her glasses and leaned back. I've been wondering about this since Parents' Weekend, she said. I blinked. You have a student working 3 jobs whose father claims he's paying full tuition. The math didn't make sense. There it was again. The math. Ethan, she continued, voice steady. This isn't a family misunderstanding. This is scholarship diversion. Potential fraud. The word hung in the air between us. Fraud. She referred me to the dean. 2 days later, I sat in Dean Patricia Hartwell's office on the 4th floor of the administration building. Tall windows. University seal mounted behind her desk. The kind of room designed to absorb chaos and respond with calm. I laid everything out. The dean didn't react emotionally. She asked questions. Dates. Account numbers. Disbursement amounts. She called financial aid and requested a full audit of every Piton Scholars payment. Within a week, the file was complete. 8 disbursement checks, each signed by Gerald R. Ingram as authorized cosigner, each deposited into the joint account. Tuition automatically covered by the scholarship. Stipend funds thousands per semester diverted. Never transferred to me. Dean Hartwell closed the folder slowly. Mr. Ingram intercepted approximately $124,000 over 4 years. She said evenly. Additionally, if you send him roughly $38,000 from your employment earnings, under the belief he was financing your education. I nodded. Seeing it written down changed something. It wasn't emotional anymore. It was structural, she continued. We are opening a formal internal investigation. This matter will likely be referred to the county district attorney. I didn't feel vindicated. I felt cold. Until commencement. She added, you must act normal. If he suspects investigation, he may attempt to move funds or destroy documentation. Act normal. For months, I played the role. I answered Sunday calls. Yes, Dad. I transferred money. I visited home once. He reviewed my bank transactions like an auditor. What's this $42 at Target? What do you need notebooks for? Doesn't the lab supply paper? He began planning my future. You'll move back home after graduation, he said one Sunday. I didn't put you through school so you could run off. There's a management position opening at the regional insurance office. Sensible work. He emailed me a list. Claims adjuster trainee, office manager, assistant supervisor. Not one research role. Behind the scenes. I made my own moves. I opened a new bank account at a different institution. Rerouted my paychecks. Removed him as authorized signer from my student file with legal services help. The dean briefed campus security quietly. If he caused disruption at graduation, they would intervene. 3 weeks before commencement, Dean Hartwell called me in again. The folder on her desk was thicker this time. The investigation is complete, she said. She turned the pages toward me. Bank routing confirmations, signature comparisons, deposit histories, 8 checks, $124,000. All documented. The university has referred this to the district attorney's office. She said, formal charges will proceed after graduation. We did not want your ceremony disrupted. The irony almost made me smile. Disrupted. She then slid something else across the desk. A photocopy of a handwritten letter. My mother's handwriting. Attached to her original scholarship application. I thought you should have this. The dean said quietly. I didn't read it there. I folded it carefully and put it in my bag. For the first time in my life, I understood something clearly. My father thought he controlled the narrative, but he had left a paper trail, and paper trails don't respond to intimidation. They respond to auditors. Graduation was 3 weeks away. I didn't need revenge. I needed timing. And timing, like chemistry, is about precision. The moment the university announced I was valedictorian, my father called within an hour. I still don't know who told him. "You're giving a speech," he said, in voice warm in that rehearsed way he used when he wanted ownership of something. "Good. Make sure you thank me. Say my full name, Gerald Ingram. People need to hear who made this possible." Of course, it had always been about witnesses. "Yes, Dad," I said. That night, I wrote 2 speeches. The first was polished, grateful, safe. I couldn't have done this without my father's unwavering support. "I'm thankful for the sacrifices made for me." I emailed that version to him. He responded 15 minutes later. "Better. About time you showed respect." The second speech was different. No performance, no padding, no mythology, just facts. I printed both. The fake went into a manila envelope labeled approved speech. The real one, I folded twice and slid into the inside pocket of my graduation gown, pressed flat against my chest. For 3 weeks, I practiced in the dorm bathroom while Marcus sat on the closed toilet lid listening. "You sure about this?" he asked one night. "No," I said, "but I'm done staying quiet." We practiced until the words stopped feeling explosive and started feeling inevitable. Meanwhile, my father prepared his own version of the day. Marcus texted me one evening. He bought plane tickets, dinner reservation after. 5 guests. Morton's. Of course he did. 2 days later, he had invitations printed. I stared at my phone. Invitations. Later I'd see one. Cordially invited to celebrate my son's graduation. Made possible by Gerald Ingram. His name, larger than mine. 3 weeks before commencement, Dean Hartwell called me in one last time. "The district attorney is prepared," she said. "Security will be present at the ceremony. If there is a disruption, they will intervene." I nodded. The folder on her desk was complete. 8 disbursement records, bank confirmations, signature match, $124,000. Everything documented. The university had already begun the referral process. Graduation would proceed as planned. The night before commencement, I was alone in my dorm room. Marcus had left early to stay at his family's hotel. The room was stripped bare, mattresses exposed, shelves empty. The kind of silence that echoes. I opened my mother's laptop one last time. In a folder labeled Ethan, I found a photo I hadn't noticed before. The 2 of us in the kitchen, flour on the counter, a crooked birthday cake between us, her hand on my shoulder. She was thinner than I remembered. I touched the screen lightly. "I'm graduating tomorrow," I said to the empty room. "You did it." At Noah Patru, pp.m. My phone rang. "Gerald, read the speech I approved," he said. "Wear something sharp. My friends will be there. This is a big day for both of us." "For both of us?" "Yes, Dad." The words tasted different now, like something expired. After we hung up, I ironed my gown, even though it wasn't wrinkled. The hiss of steam gave my hands something to do. On my desk sat my cap. My gold honor cord, the one I bought myself when he refused. 2 folded speeches. One a Lee. One the truth. I didn't sleep. I chapped a 0 I put on the gown. The fabric felt heavier than it should have. Or maybe I was just carrying less fear. The real speech rested against my heart. And for the first time in 6 years, I wasn't rehearsing obedience. I was rehearsing clarity. The auditorium at Millbrook State University has a capacity of 2,000 people. By 8:15 It was almost full. The sound backstage was a low roar, folding seats, snapping open. Programs rustling. Families calling names across sections. Laughter. Nervous energy. I stood in line, at the front of the processional, valedictorian privilege. Black gown. Gold honor cord. Cap straight. The folded speech pressing lightly against my ribs. Dean Hartwell found me just before we stepped out. "Everything is in place," she said quietly. "Security has been briefed. Just deliver your speech." She didn't need to say more. Through a gap in the curtain, I saw him. Section C. Row Douanashta. Navy blazer. Red tie. Fresh haircut. sitting upright like he was waiting to receive an award. 5 men flanked him, poker friends, drinking buddies, witnesses to his mythology. On the empty seat beside him was a small printed card. I couldn't read it from the stage. Later I would. Made possible by Gerald Ingram. Pomp and circumstance filled the room. The graduates walked in. 462 of us. A river of black fabric and nervous smiles. Families stood. Cameras flashed. I heard his voice above the noise. That's my son at the front. The word son sounded like ownership. I climbed the steps onto the stage and took my seat beside the podium. The provost spoke. A trustee read statistics. The choir sang. My pulse was a metronome in my ears. Then the associate dean approached the microphone. It is my honor to introduce this year's valedictorian, Ethan Ingram, who maintained a 4.0 gigapascals while working 3 concurrent jobs. 3 concurrent jobs. I saw my father shift in his seat. That detail wasn't in his script. Graduating summa cum laude with departmental honors in biochemistry. Applause. I stood, walked to the podium, placed both hands flat on the wood. 2,000 faces. Absolute quiet. 4 years ago, I said. I arrived on this campus with 2 suitcases and 3 job applications already filled out. A ripple of soft laughter. It wasn't a joke. It was context. I spoke about my mother, Margaret Ingram, high school biology teacher, the woman who taught me that every equation has a solution if you're willing to look at the data honestly. I felt the audience lean in. I spoke about tutoring at 7 a.m., about shelving books between labs, about carrying trays of champagne flutes in banquet halls where the centerpieces cost more than my grocery budget. Every credit I earned. I said, I earned twice. Once in the classroom, once on the clock. The auditorium was still, but in section C, row 12, tension was building. He was waiting for the line, the one he approved. The thank you, it never came. Instead, I said, every dollar that went into this education came from one of 2 places. My work and a scholarship my mother applied for from her hospital bed. There it was. The deviation. I saw him sit up straighter. His jaw tightened. I continued. Education is something no one can take from you. That's what she believed. And then it happened. A metal chair slammed upright against the bleachers. The sound cracked across the auditorium like a gunshot. Don't clap, my father roared. 2,000 heads snapped toward section C. I paid for that degree. Not him. He was standing now. Blazer unbuttoned. Face red. Finger pointed at me like I was 12 again. She wouldn't have lasted a semester without my money, everything he has. I gave him. The air drained from the room. Programs froze mid-page. A baby began crying somewhere high in the stands. I could hear my own breathing through the microphone. Amplified. My hands trembled once, then stopped. I looked at Dean Hartwell. She gave a single nod. I leaned into the microphone. 7 words. Clear. Steady. I paid for every cent myself. Silence. Not confused silence. Heavy silence. The kind where people process. I continued. For 4 years. I worked 3 jobs and sent $800 a month to an account I believed was covering my tuition. A murmur started. Low. Spreading. The Piton Scholars Award covered my full tuition. The stipend funds were deposited into a joint account. Those disbursement records are on file with the dean's office. I didn't say his name. I didn't need to. Everyone knew where the signatures were. My father's face shifted from red to gray. He opened his mouth. But no words came. I took 1 step back from the podium. You didn't pay for my degree. I said quietly. You stole from it. Dean Hartwell stood. Calm. Unhurried. She stepped to the secondary microphone. I can confirm that the university has completed an internal investigation regarding the disbursement of a merit-based scholarship awarded to Mr. Ingram, she said evenly. The room turned back toward the stage. The Piton Scholars Award, valued at $124,000, was applied appropriately to tuition. However, stipend funds were diverted into a co-signed account. That matter has been referred to the appropriate authorities. Appropriate authorities? 2 campus security officers were already moving up the bleachers. Sir, one said firmly, please come with us. This is my son's graduation, my father barked. You can't remove me, sir. They flanked him, not aggressive, immovable. He looked at his friends. Not one stood. Not one met his eyes. Frank Murdoch stared at the floor. My father was escorted down the steps. Past rows of silent families. Past fathers holding their sons' shoulders. Past mothers clutching programs. The auditorium doors opened, closed. The echoes sounded final. 2,000 people remained standing, not clapping, watching. Dean Hartwell nodded at me. "This is still your stage," her expression said. I stepped back to the microphone. "I'd like to finish," I said. The silence shifted. Warmer now. I pulled a folded sheet of paper from my pocket. My mother's letter. When my mother applied for the scholarship that paid for my education, she was in a hospital bed. I said, "She wrote that she didn't know if she would live to see this day. She asked only that I be given the chance." My voice held. She couldn't walk me onto campus, so she paved the road instead. The first faculty members stood, then parents, then the entire auditorium. 2,000 people. The applause wasn't polite. It was seismic. It was recognition. It was the sound of a lie collapsing in real time. I stood there in my black gown and gold cord, and for the first time in 6 years, I felt something release inside my chest. Not revenge, not triumph, clarity. The tassels would move from right to left in a few minutes. Tradition, but something else had shifted too. Ownership. And this time, it was mine. 2 weeks after graduation, the county district attorney's office filed formal charges. The language was clinical. Theft by deception, scholarship diversion, possible mail fraud. Pending review of how the disbursement checks were delivered. The total cited $124,000 in stipend funds intercepted across 4 years. An additional $1,000 in earnings transferred under false pretenses. Seeing it in a legal document did something strange to me. It stripped the emotion out of it. This wasn't betrayal anymore. It was accounting. Millbrook State issued a formal statement confirming that I had been the victim of scholarship diversion and that the matter had been referred to law enforcement. The Penn Scholars Foundation followed with a policy change announcement. All future awards would be dispersed directly to student-controlled accounts. No cosigners. My case became the reason. The university's emergency restitution fund advanced me the $1,000 I had earned and sent my father over 4 years. It wasn't charity. It was recovery pending the legal outcome. My father hired a defense attorney. The retainer alone was reportedly over $5,000. Assets began to surface in court filings. The fishing boat Frank had once mentioned. The patio furniture. The F-150. The flat-screen television mounted in my former bedroom. All purchased during the same years the scholarship stipends were landing. I didn't attend the hearings. I didn't need to. Paper trails speak for themselves. Around the same time, I signed my offer letter. Research Associate. Department of Molecular Biology. Research Triangle Park, North Carolina. Starting salary, SIX $5,000. Benefits. Retirement plan. My name on published work. I signed the lease on a studio apartment the same week. 380 square feet. Window facing a parking lot. Unremarkable. Mine. The first night I slept there, the silence felt different. Not empty. Chosen. A month later, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. "You destroyed me." My father's voice was flat. No bluster. No performance. "You humiliated me in front of everyone." I stood in my kitchen, evening light stretching across the counter, where my signed offer letter rested. "You stole $124,000 from a scholarship Mom applied for while she was dying," I said evenly. "You took $38,000 I earned." That wasn't humiliation. That was exposure. "I raised you. You intercepted funds in my name." Silence. "You'll regret this," he said finally. "No," I replied. "I won't." I ended the call, blocked the number, set the phone down. There was no dramatic swell of music, no shaking hands, just quiet. 6 months later, I wear a lab coat embroidered with my name, Ethan Ingram, Research Associate. Every morning, I clip my ID badge to my lanyard and think about the kid taping his sneakers together so he could afford textbooks. That kid didn't know anyone. He was funding himself. My apartment has furniture now. A second-hand desk. A bookshelf I assembled without swearing too much. A small plant Marcus gave me when he visited. I started therapy. "Doctor," Nolan said something during our second session that stuck with me. "Survival isn't processing. You survived it. Now we teach your nervous system it's over." She's right. Hypervigilance doesn't evaporate because a judge signs paperwork. As for my father, Last I heard, he was negotiating a plea deal. Probation, mandatory restitution, community service. His attorney argued prison would prevent repayment. Maybe, maybe not. I don't check updates. The chapter ended the day the auditorium doors closed behind him. Justice didn't feel like fireworks. It felt like quiet ownership. And for the first time in my life, my future wasn't co-signed. If you've stayed with me this long, I want to leave you with a few things I had to learn the hard way. I used to believe silence was loyalty, that enduring mistreatment from someone who raised you was the same thing as honoring them. It isn't. Silence in the face of manipulation isn't respect. It's self-erasure. Every yes, Dad, I said for 6 years built a smaller version of myself. The day I stopped saying yes was the day I started breathing. Here's something else. Keep your records. Keep your emails. Keep your pay stubs. Keep the paperwork that tells the truth about your life, because there may come a day when someone tries to rewrite your story, and you'll need more than emotion to correct it. Documents don't lie. People do. And one more thing. Boundaries are not war. Cutting someone off isn't revenge. Sometimes it's maintenance. I didn't stop speaking to my father because I hated him. I stopped because I finally understood that love without accountability becomes permission, and I was done granting it. If you're living under guilt disguised as obligation, if someone is using family as leverage, know this. You are allowed to audit your own life. You are allowed to question the math. You are allowed to choose yourself. If this story meant something to you, hit like so it reaches someone who needs to hear it tonight. Subscribe if you want more stories about truth outlasting control. My name is Ethan Ingram. I graduated from Millbrook State with a 4.0 GPA, 3 jobs on my resume, and a full-ride scholarship my mother secured from a hospital bed. And this time, no one gets to take credit for it. This story is created by the Boundaries and Bloodlines team for entertainment purposes only. Do not replicate actions described in this content under any circumstances.